Welcome to my presentation about subcode ensemble decoding of polar codes. This talk was given at this year's ISTC in Los Angeles and was joint work together with my colleagues from Karlsruhe and Stuttgart. Let's start with the motivation to the topic and why ensemble decoding might be favorable. Low latency applications such as 6G require us to use short block length codes. And polar codes have emerged as a very promising candidate because together with successive cancellation list decoding, they perform excellent at short block length. And if we want to further increase performance, a very good option is to just increase the list size. However, increasing the list size comes as a hefty cost, as this area or the required chip area scales suboptimally and the latency is increased as well. This is not always beneficial, as we know, because we need low latency applications. And we can see right here on the right hand side that with list size on the x-axis, the chip area and the decoding latency scale dramatically. Ensemble decoding schemes are another option to use, which try to limit these negative consequences of increasing performance. There are two possible ways to implement ensemble decoding, where the first option is to use automorphisms in the different path of the ensemble decoder. However, this approach is not applicable for most 5G polar codes due to symmetry issues. Another option, which was proposed recently, is subcode ensemble decoding, where in each decoding path a different subcode is employed. This option does not have the same limitations as automorphism ensemble decoding, and this work we investigated if that is a suitable option for polar codes. So let's go in depth in subcode ensemble decoder. Right here we have our standard polar ensemble decoder, where in each path we have an SC or SCL decoder. However, they do not operate on the original code, which was used for encoding, but rather on a subcode of that original code. And these subcodes are ideally different, so each path might yield a different code word. Then in the end, we collect all of these code words and select the one which is the most likely. However, one very important step is to make sure that all the subcodes together cover the entire code. That means that every code word is contained in at least one subcode. If that's not the case, that code word can never be decoded, and even with a very high SNR, we will always get an error on that code word, which is obviously not very favorable, so we will keep that property in mind. Let's quickly recap on SCL decoding. Right here we have our standard polar graph, where on the right hand side we have our LLR values and on the left hand side we have our bits. Since our small butterflies are on the left, we have a linear decoding order where we decode bits with a lower index first. In practice, we only decode the information bits, which are the ones in orange. And one difference from SCL to SC decoding is that in every step, SCL decoding considers L possible candidate code words instead of just making a hard decision. This leaves us in the end with L possible candidates to select from. Let's look at the performance of SCL decoding for a block length 256/128 polar code. And we can code that first with list size 8 decoder, and we can see the given performance in the solid line. However, we will also look at a different kind of error rate, which is purely theoretical and not achievable in practice, which is the list error rate. This is the error rate that the correct code word was in the list of candidates in the end. So we assume that we don't have to make the decision in the end and we will always do the right decision. And we can see that there's a huge gap between those two error rates, especially at high SNR values, which indicates that the correct code word is often in the list of candidates, but is discarded in favor of another code word which had a better metric, for example a path metric in SCL decoding. And ideally we want to close that gap because we were so close to decoding it correctly, but we actually didn't in the end. So CRC-aided polar codes were introduced, which worked by appending a pre-coded polar code by appending a CRC, a cyclic redundancy check, before encoding, which are treated as information bits and then in the end can be used as a decision genie to filter out all the wrong code words. Right here in red we see the performance with the added CRC of length 4. And we see that the performance is much better than the plain polar code and we come much closer to that list error rate. However, because those bits are treated as information bits, the rate of the code also gets higher and thus the list error rates get slightly worse. Thus, it's important to find the sweet spot between increasing the CRC length to get better performance, but not increasing it too much, such the rate suffers. So if we increase it further to 11, we see that the performance gets worse again. So 11 is worse than 4. But we can see that the list error rate is actually now basically the same as the normal frame error rate, which indicates that as soon if the correct code word is in the list of candidates in the end, we actually select it and decode correctly. Another form of pre-transformed polar codes are so-called row-merged polar codes, which in contrast to the CRC codes don't act on information bits, but rather on frozen bits. So in this example, we again have block length 8 polar code and our information bits in orange. And what we do now is that instead of always transmitting 0 through a frozen bit, we copy the information of an information bit and transmit that value through a frozen bit as well. So right here, we copy the value of U3, which is dependent on our data, and plug that value into U4, which is now dynamic frozen because its value can change. But it's still not an information bit, because in decoding, we decode X3 or U3 first, and can then decode the value of U4 because it's known, because we know U3. This has two advantages or two explanations to why that might gain performance. One option is that because U4 is no longer limited to be 0, our weight spectrum improves. Or alternatively, U4, especially for very short block length, has still some remaining capacity, even though it's frozen. And with row-merged polar codes, we can leverage that performance because SCL decoding also updates the path metric in frozen bits. This is another explanation for why this gains performance in some scenarios. Now that we have looked at the two different kinds of pre-transformations, we would want to generalize them. By generalizing them, we can use them in our framework for our ensemble decoder and try out different options much faster. So right here we again have our plain polar code on the right, our information bits in orange, and on the left we have our data, which consists of the data bits U0 to U3 and some zeros. We call those bits together the padded data word UP. This padded data word is then fed into a pre-transformation, which for now is just a black box, but we will look into that in a second. And out of that black box comes our pre-transformed padded data word, which is UP tilde. And some bits of that pre-transformed padded data word might be modified through the pre-transformation, and these bits are called target bits. So let's go into our black blocks and see what's actually there. First we have our matrix A. Our matrix A just does additions between bits. So right here we have two target bits, the two triangles, where the first target bit was a frozen bit before and now became dynamic frozen and takes the value of U0. Our second target bit, the one at the bottom, just the orange triangle, now takes the value of U1 and U2 added together. And because it was before an information bit and still is in the polar code, it can be used for the Gini-aided decision in the end. Additionally, we will introduce an offset to that matrix, which is stored in the vector B, which can be either 1 or 0, to allow us to do a fine transformation and generate more diversity later on. These two together form our pre-transformation, the black box we saw earlier, and form a new graph, where on the right-hand side we have our polar graph, and on the left-hand side we have our pre-transformation graph. These graphs together form the joint graph. And one thing I want you to notice here is that our polar graph still has rate 1/2. We have 4 information bits and 8 or block length 8, which gives us rate 1/2. However, the joint graph, which now references some kind of pre-transformed polar code, has rate 3/8. We only have 3 data bits left, U0, U1 and U2, but remain with block length 8. When we later on will compare our pre-transformed polar codes to normal plain polar codes, we will always reference the rate at the left, thus the actual data going into the code and the block length, such that comparisons are fair. And the last thing which is important here is that our decoding order, which we introduced earlier, is still linear, and we need to know the values of our origin bits before we can actually decode our target bits. And we see that both of our target bits fulfill this property. The first target bit only takes U0 as an input, which is known beforehand, and the last target bit does so as well. Only U1 and U2 are needed. Thus, these fulfill our property and the matrix A is actually lower triangular. Let's see at what we saw on the previous slide. We kept that in a little table. And we have two types of pre-transformations. We have type A, which are the CRC type pre-transformations, which are used as a decision genie in the end. Their target bits are included in the information set and thus are used for encoding, not for decoding, but again in the end as a decision genie for SCL decoding. The other type, which we learned about, which is the row merge type, doesn't have their bits in the information set, but rather in the frozen set. They become dynamic frozen, and they are used in encoding and decoding to gain performance over plain polar codes by using these properties we saw earlier, like the improved weight spectrum and the remaining capacity in the frozen channels. However, with our framework, we can actually represent a third type. The third type is only used in decoding, and we call it the subcode type. That might be really confusing right now. How can we use a pre-transformation only in decoding when it hasn't been used in encoding? By doing that, or by decoding with the pre-transformation, we actually decode on a subcode of that original code, and that is exactly what we wanted to do. Remember, we wanted to introduce subcode ensemble decoding for polar codes, and for that we need to generate some subcodes. And using these pre-transformations, we can do that very easily by just introducing a pre-transformation in the decoder, which actually hasn't been used in encoding, but the decoder thinks so. So it only decodes on a subcode which maybe has half or fourth of the size of the original code. And by combining them in a suitable way, by ensuring the covering, which we saw earlier, and some additional properties, we can actually form a subcode ensemble decoder, which might gain performance over a standard plain decoder. But one very important question is how to actually select those subcodes, as there are billions or trillions of subcodes, and which one is the most suitable for which scenario. We performed plenty of analysis for that, and we will look into a few right now. The first one, and probably most important one, is in the top left, where we looked at the target bits. On the x-axis we have our target bits, and they are sorted by their reliability according to density evolution, with the least reliable bits on the left and the most reliable bits on the right. On the y-axis we have something called average coverage. It's where we tracked how many new code words or received patterns a subcode could decode, which an original polar code, non-modified, could not decode. And we see that if we use pre-transformations with less reliable target bits, they actually perform much better than pre-transformations with reliable target bits. And this makes a lot of sense, because if we use them in our type C pre-transformations, these target bits become sort of dynamic frozen, meaning that they no longer negatively influence decoding performance with their unreliability. This is why we see that exponential decay. However, you might have noticed that there are some outliers in that decay, but unfortunately we haven't found an explanation for that yet, and that is our goal of our future research. The graph right next to that has the depth of the pre-transformation on the x-axis. The depth of a pre-transformation is the number of target bits a pre-transformation has. So the pre-transformations that we saw earlier have the depth of 2. And this depth controls how big the subcode gets, because the larger the depth, the more bits we freeze, the smaller the subcode is. This is why we see decreasing performance for a higher depth, because less and less code words can be decoded by a single subcode. However, noticeably we see that between 1 and 2 target bits we see an increase in performance, which is actually very interesting, because the subcode with 2 target bits is only half as big as the subcode with 1 target bit. But still, due to the pre-transformations and the subcode and the gained confidence in the decoding, it actually performs better, which is very interesting, and we will leverage that later to build well-performing ensembles. And the last criterion, which we talked about earlier already, is that we need to ensure a covering. The subcodes need to jointly cover the original code, and this is what you see at the bottom. Because one very simple way to do that is to just include the unmodified path. Add another path to your ensemble decoder, which is the unmodified SCL decoder, which by definition can decode every single code word. But that might add unnecessary complexity, because if we select our subcodes accordingly, we might not need that additional path. And in the bottom right, we selected many subcodes and tried to find subcodes which together jointly cover the entire code without needing that unmodified path. But there are many more analyses, and that would be way too detailed for this presentation, so please see the paper for details. So let's look at some results we could obtain using this setup. Right here we have a block length 64 polar code with weight 1/2, so a really short code. And we decoded using list size 8, 16 and 32 SCL decoders. Non-surprisingly, we gain performance by increasing the list size. However, as we saw in the beginning, we also gain a lot of decoding latency and we need more chip area for that. So now our goal is to match the performance of the higher list size decoders by using multiple lower list size decoders. So for our first example, we combined two SCL8 decoders and a subcode ensemble decoder, and we see that we can actually match the performance of the list size 16 decoder. Similarly, using two list size 16 decoders, we could match the performance of the list size 32 decoder. Why that is favorable, we will just see in a second. A second example is a block length 256 polar code with different rates. Let's start with rate on 4th, where we again have a list size 8 and 16 decoder. But due to the higher block length, we now need 8 different SCL8 decoders to match the performance of the list size 16 decoder. And we see similar results for the higher rates, like 1/2 and 3/4. Let's recap what we learned today. We proposed our generalized framework for pre-transformations, where we include the existing ones like CRC and row-merged polar codes. But most importantly, we were able to introduce a third type, which is type C, or the subcode type, which allowed us to implement SCED for polar codes. Using SCED for polar codes, we saw that we can match the performance of higher list size SCL decoders with the lower list size ones. This has two advantages depending on your implementation and scenario. First of all, if your main goal is to reduce latency, you can implement these decoders in parallel. Because one SCL decoder is completely independent of the other one, the path can run in parallel and only have to be merged in the end when selecting a code word from the list of candidates. Alternatively, if latency is not as big as an issue, but hardware space is, you can implement the same all paths in one decoder. Because the paths are basically the same, they only reference a different pre-transformation, we have one hardware decoder and the different pre-transformations implemented next to it, which can save on hardware space when implemented correctly. So we saw that using this approach, we can actually reduce some of the negative consequences of increasing the list size by actually not increasing list size, but using multiple decoders which operate on different subcodes. So I hope this talk was interesting to you and thank you for listening. And if there are any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section or write us an email. Thank you.